Welcome to episode 78 of A Master's Degree and Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Detty, and joining me this week, a man whose many shards have reformed into a machine of precision, ready to take a more direct approach by tunneling through the opposition. Gaz, say hi, Gaz.
Hi, Gaz. How are we going?
I am very, very well. Is what I said accurate?
For a minute there, it looked like you were looking up the name of our podcast because you had forgotten amongst the many other podcasts that you do, right?
Yeah, of course. I've got the real life one where, you know, how to beat your mum in a phone call when you're driving home podcast, and amongst many other mum related ones.
Yep. So, no, it is accurate. These shards are being retired and I will be taking up the mantle of the drill.
How does that feel?
It feels great. I love starting a new character. And
How long did you play the shards for? Feels short.
Yeah, it was like 9 scenarios. Because, I mean, spoilers on my PQ, but my PQ was to complete 8 scenarios of above a certain number. Side scenarios, basically.
Which fits into the mold of, because we didn't know the PQ until you revealed it late last session and you retired it. But it feels like a PQ that... do you like this PQ?
I mean, it falls into the same problems that I have with all the PQs, except this one landed on the short side rather than the long side. Do you want me to go into it now?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this one is fine.
This is also our last PQ. That's not my axe one. Like,
yeah,
this is like
which we're boicotting.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's the worst in the game. The only problem, like, this one's fine. Like, I like the idea of it, like, do certain scenarios. I know there was a little bit this in Gloomhaven. It was like do a number of scenarios, you know, from the forest or the swamp or something like that. Right? I can't remember the details, but there was I don't mind those ones. The only problem is the timing that we got this meant that it was impossible for this not to only be 8 scenarios because we only had scenarios. It's like scenarios above a certain number, and because we'd finished the main 3 quest lines, which again the flavor text on the PQ is cool because it's basically like, don't annoy any of the people, right? Like, let's just go off and do our own thing, which I like. I think that's cool. But the timing again of it meant that I had to retire this after 8 scenarios completed. Now, the only reason I got to 9 is because we had to redo this one. So again, spoilers for the episode, you know, we completed it. But it's a case of going like, again, just kind of do your own thing. And I was considering not retiring because, again, it was so short. I was going to stick around for another 2 or 3 just to get a feel. But I think I got a good idea of the shards, and I'm looking forward to, I guess, as we play towards the end of the campaign, I feel like I could probably squeeze one more character in.
Yeah, okay.
And if I wait 2 or 3 weeks, then I probably can't.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, that's fair. We definitely still have a bunch of different side ones to do. On the PQ that you just got, backtracking, which I don't know how, I would have to go ahead if I was interested in the answer, but I'm not. But I want to speculate instead. That PQ, I don't know when it came out because it happened to be linked to the shards, which I think traditionally is going to be the last character nearly everyone unlocks. I think it has to be, just based on its position and how you get it. But getting that PQ, getting like the envelope that gave that PQ, I don't know which one it was. And that also may indicate how, like, because you have to do the ones above a certain number, is there a world where you're getting that PQ while you still have a bunch under there? So therefore it's more in your control. And that's what I'm more interested in seeing. Because right now we've got it when we haven't had that. So we can't delay it ultimately, like at all. There's no way we can because there's no alternative. Whereas maybe traditionally you can get that one a lot earlier. And that's what I'm interested in. It's kind of, did we just happen to get that when it was impossible to... Did they make that like a last minute thing as well?
That's the whole thing, and I'm kind of working through the ideas of my thoughts on the shards overall. But my kind of general feeling is like it's just tacked on, like it's an extra. I don't know about this PQ. I actually like this PQ. Like, don't get me wrong. I think the design of this one is fine. It's just the timing is weird, and I can't wait till we have a conversation more broadly about all the PQs because I think a lot of the problems with them that I have is that they can be so random. Like, part of this game is like anything can happen at any time, and I love that. But sometimes a thing can happen at a time that is maybe makes it less fun.
Mm.
And that's why I don't know if you need to tighten that up somehow, or if it's just like, hey, that's just that's your experience. Change it if you want, right? Because this is an easy one to change. If you are in my position and you don't want to, then you can just go with we'll just play 15 scenarios.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't break the game that much, especially this late in the game when you're not reliant on burning through scenarios. So
I wouldn't mind a PQ chat. We'll have to organize that sometime where we get to break them down a little bit. But the thing that I would be excited for would be you and I create 3 PQs.
ooh, spicy.
That could be interesting. I'd be curious as to what we can come up with there that would work without being terrible.
Oh, they have to be part terrible though.
Oh, well then we can just make an item involved in it.
Oh, yeah.
Because usually
there's a
they're
series
terrible.
of 5 items that you all have to have and use in sequence, right? Every single time to kill one specific mob that's only on the specific position on the board.
What about you deal everyone a PQ, and I'm already having the thing that I was marking for the future, but everyone gets a PQ. But they're all the one PQ, is in there 4 parts to 1 PQ. So you don't complete the PQ until everyone's done their bit for it, whether it be, I don't know, someone's focusing on attacking at a certain amount each time and someone's about supporting and all of that. Oh, it'd be interesting. I'm pretty sure it'll be actually terrible. So, on today's episode, we're going to be covering our dirt sheet news if there is any. We'll be chatting about our scenario of the week, which is Scenario 87. Whoa, amazing. The collection. We've got a section called Wombo Combos. Or combo breaker. And we'll be doing a little chat on a new segment, which is items. It's part 1 of probably many parts, discussing some of the best and some of the worst. Today, starting with the helm, and if we have time, as in the head slot, and if we have time, maybe the chest slot as well. And so for our dirt sheet, Gaz has something really important he wanted to announce.
I retired.
And how important do you think this will affect our future players?
Yes.
Yeah, nice. Did you prefer the old way?
No.
Nice. That'll wrap up that. I just wanted to put you on the spot and just see what you would say. And I think you did very, very, very well. Sorry.
I passed.
You did pass. So ultimately, we had to repeat Scenario 87, which we had this chat last week. We didn't want to leave this on, what do they call it? On the clock, on the table, on the just ready without beating it. And we couldn't bring ourselves to reduce the difficulty or anything like that. If we reduce it by 1, it defeats the whole purpose of going again. It was probably a joint decision of a mixture of stubbornness. We're old gamers. We don't like the idea of not being able to clear something or being told something's too difficult for us, which is what the game was telling us. And we basically went back in again to do it all over again, but with a bit more of a plan. And some of that came by the cards that I chose. Here's the thing. I want to talk a little bit about the +2 difficulty, right? That we've been doing our last few scenarios on. At +2 difficulty, all the stats go up, obviously. There are some things that don't scale, and I think you've mentioned this before, things like retaliate, things like that don't necessarily scale with level. Is that right?
I don't know. I think that maybe they do. Because
as in from us.
Oh, ours. Yes, correct.
Yeah,
yes.
So our things like shield, things like retaliate, none of those things scale. In fact, technically neither do attacks, right? Because you're still hitting for 7.
Yeah, I think
it just has more health.
I think the way it is supposed to be that items scale your attack, right? Like as you get better items, you get more chance to give yourself more bonus to attack. So therefore, that's how that scales.
Yeah. And I've been playing the Astral in a bit more of a tanky kind of role, with a lot of shield and a bit of mitigation and some CC and things like that. But I'm feeling right now these difficulty levels, having the, like the Retaliate 1 infusion out and having the shield. There's a level, I think 7 card that I play that gives me a shield +1 for each pair of infusions I'll have out and all that. They're kind of pointless to a degree just because of the monster scaling.
Yeah.
Like, especially the Retaliate. It's just when you're running around 37 health and they hit me for 7 and I go, take 1 damage because of my Retaliate.
Yeah, well, that's when we did the scenario a couple months ago where we had a lot of those living spirits. I think it was my first scenario on the shards, and you were new on the astral. And we were kind of split off and we are doing our own thing. And we had to get through 3 health, but they had 3 or 4 shield, right? That one retaliate was massive.
Yes.
And it makes a difference. But you're right, like it doesn't, and maybe this is you pick it for that, but you don't pick it for the other ones. But it kind of feels a bit shit not being able to pick your, hey, I'm going to tank and retaliate when, yeah, as you said, things have 30 plus life. Hitting them back for 1, I mean, you may as well not do it.
No.
All right. It's not worth as well you taking the hit for 6, right? And that's even gaining 1 shield is substantially less like beneficial when the monsters are hitting for as much as they're hitting for.
Yeah.
So like the scale of those things, yeah, it does get a bit wonky because your better option is to not get hit.
No, the tanking style that will probably change will be things like shackles, whatever. Those ones that can full just negate an attack, which would be infinitely better than. I mean, I'm running around with plate mail, which is fantastic, and I don't have the negative -1, the 5 -1s in the deck. But yeah, I just find that it's not as rewarding playing it in that way. The other thing I was talking to Lunacy about actually on our Discord was that the pets don't scale, right? And we've known that for a long time. Pets don't scale with late game. Pets don't necessarily scale with difficulty. I mean, the Claymore Cassandra is still hitting for 5. Oh, sorry, it still has 5 health with one of the infusions, which obviously their health is going up. They're cleaving through her anyway. I mean, they were cleaving through her anyway at +0, right? Let alone now at this. But yeah, they're still hitting for the same amount. And they've, like I said, let's just use the example of, I think the guards had 37 elite. What is that?
Yeah.
So it doesn't become viable to run a pet build if we're going to be playing at +2.
Well, yeah, it's a good point. Like, and I don't think we played at a plus difficulty with the Prism, right? But I had a lot of pets. But looking at what we just did then, I think everything almost always one-shots all of the pets that I had. Almost. Well, also, there are caveats because there were a couple that had high health and there was one that had shield. But, like, you would almost be like, oh, okay, I'm just expecting him to die, which is fine with that class to a degree because there is an element of just, like, kind of vomiting them all out and kind of recycling them. But, yeah, for the classes that don't do that as much or, like, you tried the dogs on the snow speaker or even the Shackles has a couple of pets, right? Like, if they're only getting out there and then they're just getting one shot, then it's not really worth a burn card because it's essentially the card saying do 3 to 5 damage and also sustain 1 hit. That's essentially what the burn card is doing because it's probably only getting to attack once and then it's going to get
hit. If you time the initiative right, it's attacking once, but then it's taking the hit, which will be the same as you taking the hit and negating the damage with the card you just used.
Yeah. So, I mean, and because it's usually not a massive hit, right? Like it might be hit for 5 or 6, and that's big-ish, but it usually won't burn a card on a 5 or 6. So the whole pet thing does become a bit of a challenge, along with some other things like even the crab. If I think about my shield retaliate build that I went with, most of the time I was running around with 2 shield and 2 retaliate. Even that being hit for these amounts is not making me feel super safe. Like I'm still in that case going to want to be like, I'm going to want to not get hit more often than I am. Because again, retaliate 2, I mean, it adds up, but not against things that are hitting for 5 or 6 that have 30 plus life.
I guess it's good that the design of the characters have not gone down a path where this is only played as a tank. And would you like to be a retaliate tank or a ward tank? Or would you like to, there are, when you get to this higher difficulty in scenarios, you can pivot towards DPS and there are other options. It's just because of the +2 that we've been doing recently, it's definitely made me now realize that there's some things I've known haven't scaled too well because of, like in theory, but to actually see it, I'm a reactionary learner, so I need to experience it to be like, oh, that's kind of crap. So basically changing the Astral to a little bit more of a utility, which I enjoyed a lot more, and I enjoy a lot doing it, becomes enabling other people and just knowing that you don't have to be the guy that, if you're not doing a lot of damage, right, what are you doing? You're either healing a lot, right, to earn your place in the team, or you're tanking a lot, mitigating a lot. But what if you're not doing all 3?
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I was just thinking, hey, if I can focus a bit more on maybe the CC element of it, or this is why we got a Wombo Combo chat later on. it felt fine and felt good. And that's literally what we went into this scenario, or I went into this scenario altering with my Astral, is no longer going in with all the crazy shields, not going in with the one retaliate card, which works on infusions. And something I discussed, I think last week or the week before, I can't remember, was that playing all the infusions early gets me into stamina trouble. And that was something I was being mindful of this time.
Yeah.
And it, look, ultimately led to a very enjoyable scenario. Let's have a little chat about what we kind of did differently this particular time. So for starters, we've discovered a Wombo combo in the first room, which we then took into the second room, third room, and
every room. Yeah.
Do you want to go into kind of what is involved in the next thing that we'll add to the ban list? Or
that's it. Yeah, the nerf. So
it's not about kelp anymore and blink blade. No, it's shards.
Shards has a card called Unsustainable Wave. So it's an attack 3 at range 3.
What level is it?
Level 6. Okay. So it's an attack 3 at range 3. And then the 2 enemies within range 2 of the target, okay, suffer damage equal to how much damage the target takes -2. All right.
Yep, and that's pure damage. It's not an attack.
Yeah, so that's pure damage. So and they get attacked for that, but they just suffer that damage, right? So basically it hits a target and then splits off into 2 adjacent. With the caveat that you can eat grass to add +1 attack. So it becomes an attack 4 if you can eat grass.
Yep. Which if you pull +0, how much damage is that?
If I pull total.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess you do 4 to the main one and then 2 to each other's. So
8?
4 and 8.
Yeah. So effectively an attack 8.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of an attack 8, but it's a 4 and then getting through shields, right?
Yeah.
Because the pure damage matters, and it has mattered for the last couple of scenarios we've done because we've bounced it onto things that had 4 or 5 shields. Like we've talked about, like the shamans or priests that had them. We talked about the amulets of protection that the things had. So it was a relevant reason in the last 2 scenarios that we needed to bounce things off onto things that had shields, which made it 2 damage way better.
Yeah.
Plus, the shards has a passive one that allows you just to do extra damage. Like you spend a token you can change a number. So that kind of then by default, if I have grass up, I was hitting for 5, right? So which then hits for 5, then hits 1 more on each of the side targets. So what we found was that we can make that do lots of damage. Okay. Lots of damage. So like I got a power pot.
Oh, earlier than that, I think you also threw like 5 blessings into your deck.
I did.
Yeah. Just for future.
I did.
Just in case.
I don't think it was after the first. I think it was in the next
Later
room.
on.
Yeah, I think it was because I was like, well, you know what? If I can double that, right? Why not? And so
you got power pots.
I have a power pot. I have a bow that does the +2 range and +1 attack because most of my attacks are ranged. So that kind of works as well.
Yeah.
And while I don't like going all in on the power pot one play thing, there is a case for saying like giving +2 damage to this is then adding 2 more damage to the 2 targets. So it kind of works really well. And so I have also a card where the bottom is move 1, spend 1 of the shard tokens to give yourself a strengthen.
And that's a really important detail, isn't it?
Correct, because this card actually, it's a hidden text on it. It's like that actually says for Gaz, this has a 100% chance to draw you miss.
And when you first got it, that's exactly what it kept happening
exactly.
over and over again.
All 3 times I used it, I drew my miss. Just one of them actually had advantage on, which meant that I didn't miss. So yes, it has a 100% chance for me to miss. So I need the advantage.
Yeah.
So what we basically did in that first room is Detty's like, oh, well, I'm going to brittle this archer. So just for reference for people, this room starts with 2 guards and 2 archers and a trap in the middle. So Detty did a thing where he pulled one of the archers into the trap, so did some damage to it, and the traps are doing like 9 or 7? 8. I'm halfway between. Almost. So they're doing a chunk of damage. So he pulled the archer through, hit that, and then did brittle on it. And I followed up with my attack. And I used my power pot, I used my bow, I ate the grass, I didn't have my thing out to give the extra 1 damage. And I can't remember what damage I did, but it'll be on the sheet. Right here, actually.
Yeah, and it should be relatively early, right?
Gaz. 18, 16, and 14?
Yeah, so it would have been 18 on the main target.
Yeah.
that then split into a
Into
16,
and
which
then
is the -2.
Yeah, and the 14 was because the thing I hit, I think only had 14 health. Yeah, and we're only tracking that.
Yeah.
Now, one caveat with it is, and I didn't look this up until afterwards, this is how we played it anyway, is that the damage, it's how much damage the thing took, not how much total
suffered,
number.
yeah.
So, like, the archers still had lots of health at that stage, or a decent amount, so I was able to hit for the full 18, which meant that it did bounce off. But if it only had 5, then you're only getting 5, like max, that's 5.
Yep.
But yeah, so that first room kind of got deleted really quickly, and it wasn't.
How much damage altogether was it? What was it? 18, 16. What's that? 34, and then what? Another 16.
48?
48.
48 damage. Yeah.
48
for a not burn card.
Yeah.
I mean, I did have to use it for a not burn.
card.
Now, I did have to use a power pot. So if I don't use the power pot, then that's 6 less damage because it's the 222, right?
Oh.
So that's still 42.
Yeah.
And really not. Outside of that, I used my bow, which refreshes on a rest, and you used a brittle. So,
yeah,
not bad.
No, when it happened, it was like, whoa, it was amazing. And we all cheered, and it was kind of like, wow, we've gone so far ahead in our tempo based on the previous time that we did this. It felt good. I felt useful because I actually went out of my way to play the card that put the brittle on the dude. It was really a lot of hoops for me to jump through, but I got there.
Half of that damage was because of that one status effect you put on there. So it's very critical, right? Like
yeah. Like Astral has a card that the top it just says brittle something within range 1. No element usage, no nothing. So I had the time when I had to do that, and it gets really hard. But every now and then it's kind of like, you know, Gaz and I will look at each other and he's like, can you brittle that? I'm like, yes. And he goes, can you make grass? I'm like, yes. And then,
yeah. And the funny thing is that I think I talked so much about with that card specifically that I'm like, can you make grass? That I think people thought that it was a requirement to play the card. It's not, it just adds 1. Like it adds 1. Well, I mean, the 1 is essentially 3 because it's 1 on the main target and then 1 on each of the 2 that it hits.
Well,
so
if it's brittle, there's 2.
Well, this is it. So if it's grass, it's adding 3 to it, and if it's brittle, it's adding 6 to it. So it starts adding up. But yeah, it was interesting because from memory, the first room on our first run through took us basically an entire rest cycle, right? And I think we came out of it pretty healthy. But that's like all of that plus losing a card and then going into
Mark had prepper though.
He did have prepper in the last one. Yeah, true.
There was 3 rounds of him not doing anything.
Yeah.
Oh, no, actually, sorry, not attacking. So he could have.
Yeah. So
stuff.
Well, I don't think he was anyway because he was on Bane Crab. But yeah, but either way, you're right. 100%. The tempo and the feeling, I think at the start was way different. It was like, oh wow, and even I was like, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Like this is like, what do you mean? And I didn't really respect that much. Like those items I came into the last scenario with. I just didn't. We just didn't combo it like that, right? Like doubling is massive.
Yeah.
Right. And spoilers, we basically kept doing that, right? Like, because it was really effective.
Well, we were talking about that going into it because this is the rare opportunity where the whole map is laid out because we've already been through and discovered it all. I'm not about to play discovery game of can you remember where the enemies are? We set the whole thing up so that we could fly through it at a faster pace, and I didn't have to keep dicking about with changing the map. So we remembered what was in what room. We remembered that there's going to be claw crushers in one room, which is going to have shields. Which one of the things that we ended up doing in that situation was I actually can't remember 100%, but did we get the 2 rooms to kind of meet? Or
no, I think Phil wanted to do that, and we kept saying we don't want to release the like 40 health polar bears on us while we still can't kill these things.
So how did we get through the shield? Because it made sense in the second room. Automaton's got like 4 shield passive or passively or whatever, and the Algox Archers are obviously the thing you want to use to get that off. But then with the claw crushers in the other room, did we just brute force our way through?
You guys did a really good job of I think Mark baned both of them at some stage, which burns through them. I think Phil also did a bit of damage with pushing through with some pierce. And I think I did a little bit maybe, and I think collectively we all just pushed through those in the sense.
Shields.
But we did. I mean, again, this is, I think, how we played it smart, is we positioned ourselves really well with the claw crushers. I know they were a pain in the ass because they wouldn't move forward, but we managed to split ourselves enough so we were on either side of them. And so I don't think for any of their attacks they managed to do their target 2.
No.
Which on our first run through, I know there was like 3 or 4 kind of attacks which were hitting both of us. And when you're hitting for 4 and impairing and other shit, like
that's right. We had them in the room. Mark went deep. And he'd had one on focus and I had the other. So there was no way they were going to do the two. They were both Bane. They both had wounds on them, etc.
Yeah.
And that was the way we kind of sandwiched them.
Yeah. So I don't
nice
think
and safely.
I didn't have much to do with that room. I think I threw a couple of attacks, but I was mostly prepping and getting my shit up for the polar bears. So yeah, but that's it. And it just kind of worked. And I think the thing was, I think on one of them I might have drawn the crit as well. I don't know if I doubled. I think I was trying to.
We did set you. You definitely, I think, pulled the crit on one of them. Surely,
I know. Look,
I've got a video of us cheering for something.
I know the thing is as well because I had the 5 blesses plus I blessed myself in Frosthaven plus my crit, so there was a lot of crits in there. I do also
Did you
have
save any for everyone else, or
well, I was waiting, but no one else wanted it. I was going to bless myself again and put more in there, but I also just have like an attack that I can boost up really high with a lot of the tokens. I think I did that on one of them. I might have hit for 4 or 6 or something like that then crit and then got doubled. So I think there was a time where you brittled something and I didn't use that ability on it, but I used another one that was really high and I drew the crit. I think that's when I doubled. It was like on one of the polar bears, I reckon. So it was just like, it was an attack like 6 or something like that got doubled.
Yeah, okay.
Which was stupid. But yeah, and I think there was even the turn they drew their 1 shield. So I was just like, oh.
Yeah, slightly less
damage than it could have been, but yeah.
The last room was probably the very interesting room, obviously, with the 2 NPCs who, I don't know, being tied down and being sliced up by the flaming blade spinner, the Beyblade. And our handling of that particular room was very much the same as what we've been doing the whole scenario. In fact, it felt very good because there were more targets in there. Because it's everything, right? Everything within range 2.
No, just only 2 things.
Just 2 things.
It was everything. Oh my God.
For some reason I kept thinking it was everything. And I was like, why are we not stacking this up? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, stack them up. Yeah.
But again, it was another situation where you could, blow an absolute load on there. Mark would go nice and deep and start baning things up. I think he almost single-handedly dealt with the blade spinner because we didn't have to worry about the retaliate because I think he had a bane on there. I think he may have baned it twice. I can't remember if it was a brittle bane or if it was a bane. That was the other thing we were trying to get off actually was a brittle bane, which became kind of difficult. But
that's the other thing as well. Like despite me on maybe 4 occasions maybe using that kind of combo or us using that combo to do like large amounts of damage, Mark also figured out the Bane puzzle. Like he had Bane on a lot of things a lot more regularly, which I think added up and a lot of them ticked. Phil also changed a couple of his cards, which was, in the 18 months we've been playing this game, I think Phil's changed his hands like twice, maybe.
Did they patch the Blink Blade?
And he suddenly now makes all these elements.
He makes elements.
Like it was just like, and make fire. And we're like, whoa, okay.
Make
and then
wind, make ice.
Just all over the place. He's just making elements. And we're like, okay, we don't have anyone that uses fire or ice. This is great. But like,
good to know.
I think he made fire for the spinning Beyblade once. And I was like, good, thanks. But no, like he also adjusted his game and while I was doing big chunks of damage, there were definitely some really big turns from everybody to kind of that were clutch.
Yep.
And I think that's what made it work, right? Like, yes, there was big explodies of a brittle and whatever that card's called. But I think the ticking damage, because that was never going to be enough to kill everything because these things have so much life.
Yeah.
So even if I'm hitting things for 10 to 20 damage, which is massive, most of them have 30 plus lives. So they're still on like 15 to 20 health. So we still needed to deal with that.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's like I think collectively we did a really good job to get
a little bit of everything. Phil's got the direct damage on command basically to start stabbing things multiple times. Mark's working with conditions now. So he's working with Bane and Wound and Muddle and Poison Disarm and all of that, which some of the elites are, immune to, but we spent more time before we did anything, before we chose our cards. Reminder, this thing can't be stunned or disarmed. Like the polar bears, they just can't be CC'd.
Yeah.
So, planning around dealing with those was a lot better. And everyone definitely had a role. It felt more like everyone had a tighter role. You had the Wombo, you had the giant thing. Phil had the reliable damage to follow up afterwards. And Mark will deal 10 pure damage to, targets in the background while things are happening. And it was just beautiful.
Yeah. It was kind of what I see you want when you're going into a hard scenario. And it was hard because of the difficulty bump, but also there's a lot of tanky things in here. But like it's the planning that you want to do because we solved the puzzle.
Yep.
That's what it felt like. We're like, what tools do we need? How do we go about this? How do we go through? And I think, well, we ended up finishing it pretty healthy. Like, I reckon we had a good chunk of cards left.
I had heaps.
Although, except I think Phil died, but there was reasons for that. So which we'll go into. But we actually got through it really well. Whereas the last time we got to the last room and we were almost dead. Like, you were dead.
What room were we? What round was it? 20 or 21? I remember seeing that. Well, we were getting towards the tail end of it. But yeah, you're right. Everyone stayed alive long enough. There was no crazy burns required.
I don't think so. And I think even in big hits that we got, we managed to somehow take. I think Mark might have burned a card to do his big kind of explodey bane thing towards the end, which is fine because it was kind of towards the end. I think maybe you got crit for a really big number at one stage. But actually, no, Phil got crit right at the start. Remember his...
Yeah,
have you got this on the agenda?
I think I do. Oh, okay. No, I don't have it on the agenda. Okay. But I've made a note because we recorded the whole session to snippet that. Yeah. To snippet some key parts. I think it's on my notepad. Yeah. Because a lot of funny stuff was happening at the start. So
yeah, just in kind of quick summary of it. Phil needed to kill 2 things in 1 round.
Oh, that's
right. And so after my big explosion of stuff in the first room, there was
2 archers had like 2 health, 2 or 3 health or something.
Yeah, just so little health. And he'd already attacked like 3 times and had drawn like green cards, like a +1, +1, +2. So we're back to the old Blink Blade, right? Yeah. Where things just get deleted. And so he draws on the first one and he drew like a 0 or a +1 or something like that and killed it. And then I think the last one had 2 health and I think he was doing like an attack 2, right? And he drew a -1. And so he was like, oh, and I was like, well, you've drawn pretty well. Like, I don't know that. Anyway, so it survived on 1 health, which first of all was annoying for him because it means he didn't do his battle goal. Yeah. Okay. But that's one of the things. Anyway, then the archer had its turn and did like an attack 4, moved it 1 way and then drew a crit. So he then took like 8 damage. And this is like, so the swing of 1 damage attack, booked his battle goal. Well, didn't book it, but meant he couldn't do it that time. Yeah. And secondly, it was also and take 8 damage for your trouble. So it was a very interesting swing, and that was like from what was very tight first room, and we were clearing it to like, ooh, okay,
yeah, we're ahead of tempo. Thanks, Phil.
I mean, it's like the one time that Phil's modifier deck has let him down in, like
he said, like there was only 1 -1 in there.
Yeah,
and then we saw another one come out a little bit later,
and he's like, oh, I must have miscalculated that.
I haven't got all my perks yet. So, okay.
But no, it was funny.
It was very, very cool. We basically, we dealt with the whole thing quite nicely. We had the 2 NPCs. I don't know if other people have played this scenario and they've got, NPC 1 and NPC 2. NPC 1's the one that does all the attacks on the blade spinner, which is really not good. And then we have the other one who plays support, who blows all their healing cooldowns in the first 2 rounds, healing absolutely nothing. And then his mate's getting absolutely murdered. And during the completion of the scenario, we were reading the ending, and it was kind of like, one of them's like nearly dead, like completely messed up. And I'm like, how does it know that that's exactly what happened?
Yeah.
But we got an inspiration, which was really cool. And if you have both of them alive, you get another inspiration, Cass, for completing it.
You do. So while the reward is shit, because inspiration is almost useless,
it's officially, it can be, we've been told it can be cashed in.
For what?
I don't know, resources when you're building or repairing or something. I don't know. We don't use it for that. It's pointless.
Anyway, but like I love the fact that they actually rewarded you for keeping 1 more of them alive. Like, this is good. This is what we're talking about, right? Yeah. Like, give these like slightly more bonus rewards for doing slightly better.
And that's why the inspiration reward, it's fine. Right? For being able to do that. If it was like something really major, it'd be crap, like disheartening, just going, we didn't keep them all alive, etc. But I think that's small enough and maybe insignificant enough that you'd take that as a bonus reward for doing some bonus objective that you didn't know you had to do.
Yeah. I almost we don't know what the next scenario is because it is linked. So it probably leads into it, although these 2 went home, so maybe it doesn't. But I don't mind a world where you have like 2 paths. You have one where they both die and you don't lose the scenario, but that leads you into the next scenario.
Makes it harder?
Potentially. Or even you have a split where you do this scenario if they both died or this scenario if they survived.
It's too much.
I know. But like, so that's where it's interesting because you can play around with that, right? Like you can have the did at least one survive, then yes, and you get a bonus if both do. Or did none survive? You don't lose the scenario, but there is going to be a major negative because it's like you messed up. So now you have to go into the next one with a penalty, right? And I don't mind that as an idea of how it is, or not a bonus maybe, right? Like something like that. I think that's kind of cool.
There's a world where you can actually make this happen. You can literally create your own expansion, the Gaz expansion, which is literally every scenario in Gloomhaven, every scenario in Frosthaven, but an alternative thing that happens. And you just design the story. You have to rewrite, not rewrite, but write what happens if, we didn't keep both guards alive. Even though it's not official, then you can create a scenario around what happens. And then, but do that for every scenario that's ever come out as an alternative thing, as a little side project.
No worries. I'll just add that to the list of side projects I've got and the amount of time I have to do them. And that's the thing as well, massive caveat. I'm not giving shit to anyone for the design on these things. These are just extra cool things that I think in the moment would have felt good. But I get from a simplicity perspective, people already complain the game's too complex, right? So if I'm adding in more,
it's not really... It's not like unless you're going out of your way to make the special rules really weird. You can just add, because you didn't save these two guys, you will have, for every time you take damage, you lose 1 morale.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. I just remembered, and I never actually read it. Did Mark send me his thoughts on the scenario? Because I didn't get him the first time around, and I think here we go.
Oh.
Yeah, scenario thoughts. Oh, I've got updated DPS meters, not that we need them because you've got the actual raw ones there. Mark says +2 with the tankiest enemies going around was a blast. Even failing the first time just revved us up to perform better. I think this brought out the best in our group due to the challenge and had us setting up and controlling where we would normally be focused on individual play. The weighting and positioning of enemies was a bit different, but it felt good.
And Phil?
Phil no longer provides me with feedback.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he would if I asked, but I keep forgetting to ask.
Yeah,
I just need him to do what Mark does, and that's auto send it to me when he gets home.
Phil, set a reminder for 10, 11 p.m. on a Monday that you need to send Detty like 3 to 4 words.
He can just cycle the same 3 to 4 words in different orders.
Yeah. Why don't you just tell you before he leaves and just go, yeah, it was all right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I might, but then I might forget.
All right. Yeah, cool. No, I think it was good. I'm glad now when we were working out whether we should, whether we shouldn't, that kind of thing. I'm glad that we did this again, and I'm glad we did it on 2 difficulty because it was a bit of fun. Like it felt fun and challenging. Still didn't feel like laborious. Like oh god, we got to get through this one again.
That was something we talked about. It was that if it was like one of those, if it was the ooze, I think the ooze boss is one of the best examples because it's just exhausting getting through that scenario, and it felt good to win it, but to replay it would be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
And I think that basically was built into the decision of whether we should replay it again exactly as it was. If it's just admin heavy, there's probably a way less world that we want to play that a second time.
Yeah, that 100%. And because it's all side scenarios, we are not obliged to do any of these, so we're kind of just picking and choosing.
Yeah. Do you like, just for reasons, because we've got a new world record at the amDirt Olympics. Do you want to go through the DPS?
Yeah, so I haven't got to do the DPS before. I feel very privileged. So for damage, we had Detty on 33. We had Mark on 69. We had Phil on 105. So this is on his like, oh, I haven't got my perks. I'm not really fully I'm not doing very well. I'm only pulling triple figures, right? Like I think I've pulled triple figures like once in my entire time.
I've never pulled triple figures.
So I surely did once on the meteor.
I don't think I have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I ended up on 172.
Which our previous highest was, I think, Mark on the Bone Shaper at 159, just because I just remember that number because of how outrageous it was.
Ridiculous.
172?
172, yeah.
That's not
which
bad.
Is just dumb. And looking at the hits, they're like 18, 16, 14. You know, there's a few 5s and 6s in there, but then it jumps up against like 14, 12.
You can see the rest cycle.
Yeah, you really can. You can kind of see it going through. So, no, it was good. And I think I feel really good doing that and then retiring. You know, I've kind of got to play 2 or 3 different versions of the shards. I played a super supporty shards early on where I was just trying to give other people blesses and advantage and healing and stuff like that. I did a bit of a mid version of it, which I think when we started on the +2, I started doing a little bit of like supporty stuff, but also trying to pump some damage out. And especially once I got my level 6 card, I know I started to try to use that as my main damage source. So I was like, again, supporting a bit, but then I could throw out a couple of attacks.
Yeah.
And then these last, well, probably this one here doing twice, I kind of just went full on of like, how much damage can I pump out?
It's funny because it's almost like a incidental exchange of roles between you and Mark, in that Mark's still performing damage, but he seems to be more utility. He still does most of his damage is coming through Bane and conditions. Whereas you've just gone to full damage, and you guys have kind of just swapped roles without actually talking about it.
Yeah.
which is really handy, obviously, because Mark, when he mentioned he was going to jump off the, stabbing, crabbing, it was kind of like, oh, okay, I want to, how this is going to go. Mark feels too strong and, wants to even things out a little bit, and you're like, hold my beer. So
yeah. And I think we'll talk about the kind of combos and stuff like that a bit later, but that one there that I was doing with what you were doing, I think one of the reasons why I feel fine about retiring that now is that I got to do that. Like, as in, we got to explore that space of the game with me doing that kind of combo and a little bit of like brittle combos. And I think Mark even made the comment once we finished, we're like, for all of our playing, we've never really used brittle.
Never.
Like, not effectively anyway. We've had it on there by accident. And like, I know with the fist, he put it on there occasionally, but it would just double the next hit without any planning. Right?
I think that's exactly it. It's basically you put it on, and then it's kind of like, I'm putting it on because I want to use it next round, but there's no coordination around who can best utilize this.
Yeah. So there's that part. And I would feel obliged to do that every time if we continued to play. So if I was playing the shards again and you were still on the astral, there's no reason not to do that because then everything else feels suboptimal.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't like that because it starts painting me into this is the combo that you need to do. And then you start getting this place of like, well, everything has to funnel into this combo. It's like,
well, there's no other way to play it.
That's it. Why would I not continue to stack these, right? Why would I not add more items that do these type of things? Like, there are other items I could have got that would also increase that one damage that I can, kind of use on cycle, on rest cycle. And I feel, and this is my personal opinion, this is generally what everyone should do. This scenario was fine for it because the things had so much health. So even after pumping like 30, 40 damage out in one hit, there was still plenty there for people to do. Like, as in, hey, you guys can still do other things. And it still required all of us.
Yeah,
whereas if we were doing this on normal, or if we're hitting monsters that have got like 20 health and one person is doing 15, 10, and 10, or, whatever the numbers work out to be, and suddenly you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess there's some scraps for people to pick up on 3 and 4, sure. Like, that's not fun. Well, I find that's not fun, and that would be too reliant. So I'm kind of in this space, and this is what we'll talk about in the combo space, but like, I'm glad and I'm happy to kind of put that aside now and go like, yep, cool, that was good fun to explore. Now let's look at other things.
Yeah.
So.
No. Something I want to talk about now is trials. All right. So we've finished my trial in this scenario, and we also finished Phil's. And I think that leaves us with 9 out of 10. I think there's one left.
No,
or does Mark have one as well?
Mark has one. Yeah, me and Mark are still going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I think the one I had was the last one because of how long it took me to get through the first one. So there's none left after this.
No,
we didn't draw one. Okay.
Yep. So that means we've still got one cool thing to read, right? We've still got one surprise coming. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm excited about that.
Which is amazing. So yes, Trial Talk, tune out if you don't want Trial Talks, Tuesday, unless you're there yet. So the one that I had, I thought was brilliant. And then and we did it last week, and then I didn't talk about it, even though it's one of those ones where when I was doing it, everyone now understands roughly what's involved here. So we had Trial of Victory. At the start of each scenario, instead of characters drawing battle goals, normally you draw characters +1 to check battle goals and assign 1 to each character. So I'm effectively grabbing 5 to check battle goals from the deck and assigning them to players. You have passed this trial when you complete a scenario and all characters complete their battle goals. I think this is insanely cool and insanely stressful because while I was there, I had all the battle goals in my hands. I'm literally, it's its own mini puzzle of trying to work out who best can utilize what. Without, obviously, I'm not going to make someone play badly, or it's trying to work out who's playing what character, what's their play style, can they achieve this? And it's agonizing because they can hinder your actual just gameplay. They can really, if I gave you Slowpoke, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to assign Slowpoke to someone. I didn't have to. I could have left that as a spare, but Slowpoke is a fairly easy one to do, especially now that we've seen the actual scenario and you mostly play range, which is why we kind of was like, okay, cool, I'm going to give that one to Gaz. And what I love about it is, when I give it to someone and they read it, I immediately get the fuck you look from everyone. And I'm like, mate, you have not seen the alternatives. And that part was stressing me out because people think I'm going out of my way to completely mess them. And I'm like, this is actually probably the best one for you. And everyone's going to have a rough time with these. And I gave Phil, I think it was Assassin or something. It was the one where he had to kill 2 things.
In one turn, right?
Yeah, Slayer. Kill 2 or more enemies in the same round. And that's what we ran into with that. And when he booked that, all he had to do was clear that. And he had the one that was probably the hardest because everyone else just had to make sure they didn't do a certain thing. He had to actually actively achieve a certain thing, which then involved all of us as we are setting his battle goal up.
Yeah.
And it's not just, you failed your battle goal, you booked your battle goal. You book on a trial now.
Yeah.
So the amount of emphasis on making sure that we can get this right, just to spread this around. So Phil had Slayer, kill 2 or more enemies in the same round, which for a Blink Blade is normally fine, but he cooked it once and then later on he managed to just get this in the last room and it was the greatest celebration, cheering and all of that. I gave Gaz Slowpoke, moved more than 2 hexes on each turn, which I feel is
that was pretty easy for me. Yeah,
because you just hang back and blow everything up for 48 damage.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because I mean, I have ranged
Imagine
like
if it was
3
never
to
attack.
4. Oh, I'd never attack. Yeah, well, that's it. I'd go full support and then go, you guys do
To
it.
be fair, there's a world where you also get Slayer because of that, right?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, I just didn't think that because I hadn't seen it work as well as we had coordinated it. Duelists, I gave to myself, never exit a hex adjacent to an enemy except through forced movement. I could not give this to anyone else. I was contemplating it a little bit like for Mark because he can go invis. So if he's next to something, he will find ways to stay alive, potentially.
I could have taken that.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure. I gave this to you last week.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think so.
And you said, I wanted to
because so I had just gotten my level 7 card, which was like an attack 5 melee. It's like my only melee attack that I've got. And I was like, but now I can't use this. But like knowing that, yes, I would have been probably the next best target for that one.
I mean, I was perfectly fine as taking it because of the health pool and the couple of shields that I had. I wasn't planning on moving away from a target, but it definitely got awkward once I moved into a hex that happened to be adjacent to something. I had to immediately stop.
You're like stuck.
And everyone's just like, can you come over here? And I'm like, I can't. I just can't. Like, no, move to the next hex. Just the next one. I'm like, I can't. Even if it's adjacent to it. I can't exit this hex.
Yeah.
So that although we worked out if we can push things out of the way, it was fine. And then I gave Mark never perform a basic action, which it was completely fine until about the last 10 minutes of the scenario when he ran out of fun things to do. So he couldn't use the cards for the base move too, and he couldn't attack for the base attack. So he had a couple of nothing turns towards the end. Because of that. But we did it. What are your thoughts on this trial?
Yeah, I also agree. I think it's a really fun one. It's a group one. It's fun to especially because they're the 2 tickers, and the 2 tickers are the ones that mostly change the way you play, right? So I think it's a really cool way of bringing the battle goals into the trials.
Yeah.
And I just wonder what other ways you could bring that similar feeling into the game. Not all the time, but more regularly. Because like the battle goals are meant to be there specifically so you be selfish and you kind of play suboptimally so that it makes the game harder overall, right? Like a reward for either being really clever or doing something not how it should normally be done. But there is a world where there is fun in everybody kind of trying to help each other. I'm
feeling that.
So, I don't know how you do it, but like some form of regular frequency, in which case like everybody maybe knows about each other's battle goals and you'll all have to achieve them. If everyone achieves them, then there's a group benefit or something like that. It's like occasionally adding in this extra puzzle. But yeah, I think that's what this felt like. It was a little bit of a, even though we didn't discuss them, we kind of knew. Like when Phil was like, I really need to kill those 2. We're like, okay. And then he did it.
Well, what's cool is I know.
Oh, you knew as well.
I knew all of them.
Yeah,
so I'm kind of steering it along, but I'm also rules lawyering it in my head of if last week I gave him Wallflower, right? So he had to end his turn adjacent to a wall obstacle or objective or something like that. And within turn 2, he had moved to the center and started hitting one of the things. And I'm looking at him like, you've booked a battle goal. He goes, yep. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm not upset by it or anything like that. I'm just letting you know I have seen it.
Yeah.
And you know, and by that stage it was kind of everyone, you're free to book your battle goals, it's completely fine. I did not mind having this trial for a couple of scenarios.
Yeah, well, this is one that's not changing. Like, it's not one of those your messes up your modified deck or take a bunch of damage when things happen, right? Like, it's not ruining your fun. It's more like, when can we make this work?
Yeah.
And I know there was a couple of times, even during this scenario, where we were of like, well, Phil can't get his now, right? So can I book mine? Because I really want to move 3. Right, I really want to move 3 hexes. And then we're like, no, okay, we'll just leave it. Because I would have felt so bad if Phil had killed 2 things at the end there, but then randomly I had moved 3 hexes just to be 1 hex closer for a ranged attack, right? Like, and go like, oh, we did it, but I moved 3 hexes because I thought we were not doing these.
Yeah.
So,
and those 3 trials that you just have to make sure you don't walk more than 2. I had to make sure I didn't exit a hex next to an enemy, and he didn't have to do a basic attack. So they were all incredibly manageable.
Yeah.
It was literally the whole scenario setting him up, and that was where that stress came from. If you get this trial, 100% lean into the fun of it. I could have easily sat here and said, okay, cool. Who reckons they can kill 2 things in one?
Yeah.
You know, have fun with it and just give it to someone and then try to do what we did and make it happen. I think the fun is in, not giving other players the option of their choice.
Totally. I 100% agree with that.
I could have easily done that.
And it's cool because you know kind of how some of our characters work. Like, you don't know the cards, but you know the play style. So you're looking at it going like, okay, if I give this to this person, is it going to make him useless? Right? Like giving the whatever one, the duelist or whatever you had to Phil would have been shit. Because he moves in, attacks, and moves away. And he'd be like, oh, well, now you're going to move in and just die. Right? Yes. Like, so that's stuff like that is dumb. Or even the slowpoke to Phil as well. It basically makes a lot of his character, which is like really big movement type of thing, completely useless. So there's you knowing how the characters work is part of that fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. 100% agree. I think people need to lean into it.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to talk about that? Because holy crap, this was a confusing thing towards the end. So what actually happened? Phil basically said, my thing's impossible. Was that something like that?
Yeah. So Phil, after we finished and we were all celebrating stuff like that, Phil's like, all right, guys,
and he sits there.
Yeah, he sits here next to me. He's like, hey, like, nah, my trial's impossible. And like, we're like, Are we going here
as well?
Yeah. Like, we're like, okay. And then so he's like, I just can't do it. I'm like, okay, well, what do you mean you can't do it? He's like,
just quickly on this. It's Phil. And there's a joke with Phil that he sometimes doesn't read the whole card, right? Whether it's an ability or whatever. I've run into situations in the past where he says to me, I can't complete any of the battle goals. And I grabbed the battle goal deck of remaining battle goals that we had and went, kill a monster with this and this. You can do that. And I went through and basically out of the 13, 10 of them I said to him, you realize you can do these? And he was like, okay. Yeah. So it's a running joke that he sometimes just goes, I can't do this. And this is the one instance where we don't want to check it because it's part of not knowing what it is. So that's what made it so confusing.
Yeah.
What do we do? Do we help?
And he seems so genuine, like, and he wasn't just like, I can't be bothered.
No.
Like, he's like, I don't want to. Right? Like, it's like, he's like, this is impossible. Like, I can't do it. And so I was kind of, well, like, okay, hang on, let's stop for a second and have you read the card? Yeah. And he's like, yes, I've read it. And I was like, okay. And you sure? He's like, yeah. He's like, you just read it. And I was like, and I'm umming and holding it down. And I've got the card, but I don't want to flip it over because the whole thing is this secrecy. I was like, I don't want to read this because if I read it, and I'm like, surely they couldn't have designed this in a way that's impossible. I was starting to try to go through in my head of like, why would this be? I was like, maybe it's a scenario type, right? Like he has to complete a certain, and why now? Like we just did that.
Yeah.
Like why is this now? And I'm like, is it because I retired?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It was really weird. Like maybe it's like, hey, play the next character, right? Or be the next to retire or something like that. And he's like, well, I can't do it now. But I'm like, this is dumb if they've done that. If they made it that it's so easy for it to be impossible, right? And so that's also what intrigued me because I'm like, I want to read this to see like how have they messed up or what kind of really weird super niche scenario have we landed in which has made one of these impossible. So my curiosity was now there of like not so much what's on the card.
But you and I are in the same boat. We're just like, I don't know if you do, and you're like, I don't know if I want to, and here I'm here because just
Mar-
hand it to me.
Mark's
Hand
like,
to
I'll
me.
read it.
Yeah,
I'll read it. It's like, again, okay, it's supposed to be secret. Like we're trying to work out how we do this. Anyway, so eventually, and like I was very reluctant. I was like, fine. I'll have a read, right? And I read it, and it says, complete a scenario during which your character becomes exhausted. Now, this is what I was saying earlier. This is why this was relevant. Phil died.
Yeah.
Okay, Phil died with a couple of turns to go. After doing quite a lot, right? So he didn't just like kill himself. It
was over lack of cards. He got to the point where he just couldn't play them.
You have passed this trial when, before starting the next scenario, you convince another player that your trial is impossible and you should be permitted to reveal it. And like as soon as I read that, guys, I didn't read it out loud.
No, you read it to yourself.
I read it to myself, and
like,
I just
you can help him with it.
Yeah,
and I'll still not know.
And I just cracked up laughing, and I handed it to you, and you had this look on your face, like not like, oh, everything's fine, like not like, yes, this is true, but like, why is Gaz laughing? What's wrong? Has Phil really misread this card? And you read it, and what was your reaction when you read it?
I know.
You don't think you can do it? It can't be impossible.
Like, can you just read it?
Yeah.
Just double check. Just read it. Read
So
it.
Phil reckons that his trial
It's impossible.
is impossible, and so he wants me to read it
Just
to check it.
You haven't checked it yet.
I haven't read it yet. Do you want to read it again, the whole thing? Make sure there's
Nah, just check it. One of you guys can check it again.
like I'm happy to,
Tomo.
but like, should I?
Yeah, may as well. If
you-
he thinks it's possible and it's in his hands, it's never going to be done.
So you think it's impossible, 100%, based on things that?
Let's have a look. Sorry.
Are we putting money on
I am
this?
impossible. It's impossible for me to do this.
Impossible for you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, but I just need.
Based on your class or based on you personally?
It's just the trial. Just.
No.
Okay. I can't explain. I need someone else to just.
Just read
Okay,
it.
alright.
alone.
I want to read it now. Is it a Phil can't do it or it can't be done?
Alright, trial time! Yay!
Is it don't play the same character twice? Is it true though?
Stupid.
I'll read it up. Complete a scenario during which your character becomes exhausted. You pass this trial when, before starting the next scenario, you convince another player that your trial is impossible. You should be permitted to reveal.
Fucking thing.
So you did it.
Yeah.
Wow! That is so fucking meta.
Yeah.
Especially because I didn't want to read it.
Yeah.
Well, like maybe let's not read
As
it.
soon as you started Christy, I'm like, fuck this! No! Just stop! Just fucking read the card!
Yeah, just I'd have to check the video, but it is just so meta, like outside the box,
Yep.
that it happened to happen, and it also happened to happen to him. If it was you, actually, I don't know. I think everyone would have had a little bit of a different spin on it because everyone would have had to have, done the same thing of, I don't really know how this works, right? Oh, it's impossible. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And trying to convince you to look into it where, I'm probably someone who's constantly checking if something works.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, that, see, this is interesting in the thinking, right? Is that Phil chose me. Now, me and you are the two that are most reluctant to look at it. All right. See, I'm thinking if I had that one, I'm 100% going to Phil because I could just say this is impossible and hand to him. He's like, he would not second guess that, right? And I feel like Mark was also pretty quickly to come, look, I'll read it. And that might have been a Mark doing that to take one for the team from the podcast so we wouldn't know, right? So that's handy to kind of have that kind of extra kind of outside of that space to read it. But yeah, me and you having that would be interesting. And even Mark going like, "Oh, this is impossible." So yeah, it would be a different dynamic.
Yeah.
It's actually once we're done with mine and Mark's last one, I'm really, really interested to have a chat about the trials in general. But just as a really quick snapshot, I love thinking about all the ones that Phil got because Phil just happened to pull, I think, some of the ones that are the worst for him.
Yeah.
Like him individually as a player.
Don't say certain words and
mess your modifier deck up, right? Like, he just, not all of them. I have to go through them and see what he had, but I feel like he's had a few in a row that have just been like brilliant. Like, if you had to go and craft them based on the player, these are probably on point for that. So yeah, it was really good.
I think the trial system has just been one of the most refreshing things to also occur, and the good thing is it didn't happen at the start of the campaign. Or the start of the game when you're already having all these new rules and systems in place. The way they drip feed them through buildings is actually really clever because you get them later. And then we only had 10. I kind of wish there were more. I think it'll overstay if there's too many. But I mean, I only got 2, right? So it's kind of like...
Yeah, I think I've only had 3.
Well,
I think I'm on my 3rd.
Mark's one shot 5 of them. So
yeah, I think you're right. And the timing for us, this is one of those weird instances where I think the timing for us was actually perfect. But I think someone might have mentioned it. I think it might have been Ricewind mentioned that they got like pets. They got like basically 3 buildings that are all drastically kind of add things into the game all at the same time.
Yeah, okay.
And it was almost a little bit of like, this is too much.
Yeah.
Like we are
That's
just
challenges
adding in everything. And that's where that timing of things and it being pure random as to when you can get all these things can be a bad thing. So, but look, again, I feel like it's easy enough to house rule and just say, if you did get that, we're just going to hold on this. We can hold on this for like 3 or 4 scenarios, and then we'll bring the trials in because I don't think it's not a time critical campaign wise. I think it's more of a like put this in a space that's going to make the most enjoyment. So.
well, and the most likely thing that's going to happen is we're going to complete it, and the guy's going to lose the records of us completing it.
Yeah,
so we will get to do them again.
Or gain 4 morale, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very, very interested to see what the reward is. So.
All right, let's talk about some combos. So we've obviously got your combo.
Yep.
And we've obviously got the pretty much a Wombo combo can be anything with a power pot, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Do you have an attack that does hits lots of things? Well, cool. Add a power pot.
Add a power pot. So it's kind of copying it out. So we had Blink Blade, we've had the Kelp with the Grim Trophies, and then, because it wasn't already strong enough, they had to have that second card that comes in to the top. So attack, move, and then 5 trophies, attack, move, which is genius. It's out of the box.
It's like, hey, we got to come up with some cards for this character. Do we have stuff with a lot of attack moves? We do. Why don't you put one on the other half of the card so they can just do it all in one turn?
Pretty much.
Well, I think the funny thing as well with that is that Mark didn't really hard lean into that until he got that second card because he had Grim Trophies and I think he used it a little bit and it was effective. But then when he got that second card that led him to do the move, attack, whatever it is at the top, that's when I think he went into the double power pot and items to really buff it up because then he could have that really one really big turn, which was interesting.
Where he gets to go through his whole AMD as well.
Yeah, well, because he's invisible, so he gets advantage.
Correct.
So yeah, just like do whatever you want.
Correct. There were a couple of
just before you, because it's kind of, we never saw this, but a one that's is basically exactly the same is with the Coral. There's a card called Shuck. The bottom of Shuck basically does exactly the same thing as the bottom of Grim Trophies, but it's based on how many Tide cards you have out. Yeah, but it's a burn. So this is my big argument around that being busted, but not busted for the whole scenarios. You get 1.
Yeah.
But I mean, the counter argument to that is that it still deletes an entire room, and a lot of the time in a Frosthaven scenario, there's like 1 main room, and if you can delete that room, then it doesn't matter.
Well, his currency is the trophies.
Yeah.
But half his modifier deck is creating trophies. So it's not really something where while he's blowing his load now, it's going to be a while before he recharges. No, he recharges during the blowing of the load.
Yeah. So like I never used Chuck, but I could see it there.
Yeah, okay.
But
well, you can't use it now. It doesn't feel as good as that.
No, totally. Like if I was to play Coral, I wouldn't use it because again, I feel like I try to steer away from the super busted combos, especially if we know that they're already there.
Yeah.
This was interesting because we hadn't tried it yet and we kind of worked it out during the scenario, and now that it's done, it's done. But yeah.
And this chat's not about things that are broken. I'm not highlighting broken things. I'm literally talking about the cool combos that people have discovered that just and how they kind of work a little bit. So obviously you got power potions with anything that multi-attacks. That's obviously a thing. Takes a lot of brain power to work out that you can get, one of those and use it at the right time. And hell, you can get a minor power potion and you can alternate. You can use them both, whatever. Lucky dice, right? Someone I've reached out to a few people for some of these. So lucky dice with unstable wave, which is what you were using. If you added that on top of it as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you make sure you find that crit, right?
Pretty much. Just that one plus that plus that plus that plus.
Oh, because it rolls.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That is so busted.
Yeah.
So we weren't
Especially
even doing them.
When you got a whole bunch of blessings in there as well, dude. Imagine.
Wow, that's insane. Yeah, it would have been, right? Because with it, pulling them out and going through and going like, oh yeah, cool, just chuck 2 crits in a that's just dumb.
Yeah.
Like, that's just stupid. Okay.
So, in the future, or someone else.
Yeah,
et cetera,
go ahead.
Mark asked me about a combo with his kelp because he's Bane Crab, and he handed me 2 cards. He's got there's one called Hasten the End, which is level 7 card, and that's the one that he gets to teleport 4, do 10 damage to himself, and bane everything within range 1, targeting all things in range 1. It's a burn, 2 XP. And then he's got the top of number, there's a 5 card. I'll have these cards on display. Death Spiral, which is add stun and curse to your next Bane ability. So he was asking if they combo, because the Bane ability is to teleport 4, do 10 damage to yourself, and Bane everything, which then becomes a stun everything and put 2 curses into everything as a combo. And he asked me, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that is fine. And I jumped on to the Outpost Discord and I checked it up, and sure enough, it seems to be fine. It seems to be a good combo. Ember Energy Source, Mark. ESS, one of my favorite items, which I've used on Snowflake and Shackles, and I don't know if anyone else. I'm surprised no one's using it right now. I'm probably going to look into seeing whether I can snack it up for my last character, whatever that might be. But during your turn, you can increase the printed number.
Yeah.
Right? By 1, by the range, the attack, the movement, or add target or whatever. So that Bane 1 targeting all within range 1.
Oh, does it
can
say
now
range
become,
1?
Yeah, can now be range 2.
Okay, wow.
Which is your, let's just say you got things stacked up in an area. I mean, you're looking at 6, 7 targets maybe that are baned, but also stunned. And you've just completely filled the deck with 10. Like you're at cap. Just like that.
Oh, for curses as well. Yeah, okay.
2 curses per target.
Per target. Ooh, okay, spicy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So ESS Mark could make that little combo thing you've got better, or you can increase the printed number of the damage you're taking to 11 if you want, instead of the 10, which is pretty cool. The trap has some interesting ones where just it's so hard to display and talk about them, but I think General CGO was giving me some updates on some of the crazy stuff that you can do with traps, with Pain of Path, which is the one that you do an attack that pushes 2, attack 3, push 2. For each trap the target springs, due to this attack, you add another push 2.
Yep.
But then you combo with a bottom of Persistent Pitfalls, which is immediately after any trap with a damage value of 2 or more is sprung this round and its effects are applied, you create a trap that has half that amount on a spot. So it just
keeps going forever. Some say they're still moving, right? Like, okay.
Yeah, so there's that, and then you've got things like Extra Teeth, which is destroying all adjacent traps to create a trap in an empty hex within range 2 that has all the effects of the destroyed traps added together, but the new trap can't apply the same condition more than once. And then there's Foxhole, which is destroy an adjacent trap. Once you've pushed them all together, you destroy a trap to perform X -1 within range 3, which hits 2 targets. So you're doubling the effect of the actual trap that you're doing. So if you can combine enough traps to make it 12, 15 damage or whatever, but that 15 damage is now it's targeting two things.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's just dumb stuff with traps.
Yep.
Which is really, really fun. Expertise potion. So Fist, and we saw Mark do this. This has got a level 5 card called Preserve Fury, which is you cannot use one with a mountain to recover this card. It's an attack 2, recover up to one of your discarded cards. All right, so attack 2, discard, recover one of your discarded cards. If you burn an element or consume an element, you can get another card. So you can get 2. The bottom has an almost identical ability. It says you cannot use one with the mountain with this to recover this card.
Yep.
And the bottom is just recover up to one of your discarded cards.
Okay.
And if you consume an element, you can do a second one. So the top and bottom is like that.
So using expertise potion, you
which
get 4
uses the
cards
top and
back.
correct. And then one with the mountain to recover a 5th.
Oh, of course you could.
Not the ones you
still
necessarily
play 2 cards.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I have to remember how one with the mountain works, but apparently you can recover 5th like this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, cool.
So
I mean, yeah, that's got more hoops than most of these to jump through in a way, other than the trapper that has to put all these things out. Because you have to have 2 elements up, which is not that hard actually. Not many hoops.
it is cool.
But it's cool.
It's cool, like just coming up with these or discovering what people have managed to find together and not kind of going out of your way to break things completely, but surely there are ways to tweak it.
Yeah, like I guess the what I liked about what we were doing was that it was 2 characters using abilities. It wasn't like if I combo this card with this card, now it does broken stuff, or if I target like this card with this item, now it does not broken. Broken's the wrong word. Now it does combo-y stuff. It was like, well, I really needed the brittle to make this do stupid amounts of damage. Because like on all of those, there's like 3 or 4 instances that does half of the amount of damage, which hitting for 8, 9, and then 7 and 7 is still a good hit. But it's not like, it's nothing we would talk about heaps, right? So that's what I liked. And so when we were going to talk about this, I thought of a couple that were like characters.
Yeah.
Have you got some?
Character-wise.
Have you got some others?
The only other one that I do have is I think Shards, you've got one that does something about brittling multiple targets. So setting that up before you do your thing that you normally do, which, I mean, obviously if you're brittling the main one, but if you can brittle those side ones, they will take more damage than the main one.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a bit busted. One other one that was given to me was Banisphere. A Circle of Eyes, the one that adds +1 target during your ranged attack, add +1 target.
Yep.
With the Spear of Justice, which is the Banisphere solo item.
Oh, yeah.
Which is during your attack, perform attack 2, range 3. All of your banners are treated as additionally occupying the hex of the attacked target to their bonuses, and the hex is treated as occupied by the ally this round. Apparently, and I didn't quite understand how this works, but this allows you to get off this combo allows you to get off a lot of formations without the need of an ally.
Yeah. Okay.
Which apparently just makes it really handy for getting a big turn off without needing to position things in the right spot.
Yep. Yeah, that
as
makes
the main
sense.
ones.
Yeah, like some of the ones that I know we've seen is, and these are just little ones, but like the snowflakes. What's the snow one called?
Snow.
The character.
Snowflake.
Yeah. Okay. The snowflake birds.
Yeah.
With the meteor. What's the one that?
Igneous Path.
Yeah. Stuff like that was always cool.
Yeah.
And one that I know, I think Iron Wine is looking forward to trying is birds again from Snowflake, and the one that I've got the Shards has, which is like you spend X token to give everyone like move X, because then they'll get move X plus birds, which is +2, and jump.
Yeah.
So basically, they get all that not on their turn.
No.
So you play birds, and then I go, okay, now everyone have a free move 7 with jump, and then have your turn.
Yeah, okay.
Like
be wherever the hell you want.
Pretty much.
Does that work on allies?
Yep.
Like as in NPCs?
Yeah, well, the only difference is that birds doesn't have a range, right? Birds is just sight range. Yeah. So the shards one is within range 2. So it's range 2 of you. So you actually have to be close. It can make it with difficulty make it range 3, but you could you have to be clumped, which makes sense. It's not just anywhere on the board, but there are situations like, again, remember the escort one? We start next to the escorts. Imagine that.
We're talking about like the meeting place one?
Yeah, the meeting place one. Yeah. Imagine doing that on because all the doors are open.
You would be in the other room by
now.
All
the doors. There's no doors in that one because everything's open and on the board. I'm pretty sure. Maybe, or maybe we move through.
No, I'm pretty sure they're open because of the spawns. They're spawning and reinforcing on both different exits.
Yeah.
So,
but either way, we still go one at a time. But yeah, imagine doing that and you go, okay, cool. So let's all move 7 that way, and then on our turn, you still get the birds on your turn as well.
Yeah, okay.
So you get to move +2 with your normal move. Like, I feel like you could pretty much do that in one round.
I thought birds was broken before we had this chat.
Yeah. So they're just a couple of the character combo ones that I like.
I know Mark has got a big thing on this where he specifically wants someone to play Snowflake, someone to play etc., and then someone play Fist.
He's got like 5 characters to combo. We need the 5-player rules.
Yeah. He's got some crazy thing with just allows just infinite fisting.
I mean, because it's not like it wasn't infinite before, right? And you've just talked about with one potion how you can basically get 5 cards back in one turn.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he needs any more fisting.
That's the only combo he's really fixated on working on, basically
Yeah.
the fisting one. He's not really interested in anything else. He's going hard in there. So
I think a couple of other little minor ones as well that are just good. I won't say they're super combo like Wombo combos, but they're cool synergies. Are which we never really saw was the Bone Shaper that gives the retaliate. I think it is to one of their things, and maybe plus shield. I feel like they have a card like that because I know Kelvin might have used it a couple of times when I was on my Geminate and I was going forward to do
that's right.
retaliate.
God, that was
so
forever ago.
yeah, so I feel like on the crab style kind of character I played with the retaliate, that could be good for a bit of a cycle around that. That would be fun. But
It's interesting. I was really looking at just a couple of the Shadow Deathwalker level 1 cards and some of the ones later, and there was one card in particular that was like consume all the shadows to give a target, and I may be wrong on this, like shield equal to the amount of shadows you've just consumed as a bit of a support utility. Clear the room of your shadows, which you do need for your attack, but you can actually play it in a support kind of role where there's actually healing, there's disadvantage from being on shadows and things like that for the team, and also damage mitigation from the shadows. So you can definitely play it in a supporting kind of role. Not that I recommend I will do that if I was to play it. But in that situation where you're giving something so much retaliate, you could almost have the giant big ass retaliate turn with here's all your retaliate, here's all your shield. Will throw you so far ahead that thing's the only thing that's going to get hit, and just see what happens, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there was maybe for the shards, there was a high level card that I didn't get that basically gave everyone shield and retaliate equal to the amount of tokens you spend or some bullshit like that. Like, yeah. So I think there's some wild things
you could do like a
to-
full tank liner.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Never attack anything.
No, we
just let everything kill
retaliate.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. If you have, and you're in our Discord or not, I mean, request an invite and I'm more than happy to send you one. But if there's other combos that people have discovered, I think this is going to generate a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Of what people have discovered and what they're doing. And if you're finding anything that's particularly, and I won't use the word broken, but fun, explodey fun.
Well, it's funny that you say that because this is, I think we were talking about offline before we started about like I had to recheck the rules and the card and the wording on that particular combo I did multiple times because it felt wrong. Like it felt like it shouldn't be doing that. Right. And there is a clarification in the FAQ. So thank you, Dwarf. And by the way, for those harassed Dwarf, because he is making a app version of the FAQ. So no, he's not. I'm joking. He's updated to the GitHub, either GitHub or GitHub.
Get good, whatever.
Get good hub.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's updated it so that it's off BGG and it's now its standalone thing, and it's amazing. It's really, really easy. It's just as good as it was, except it.
I actually check it now.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to navigate.
But I did check that, and there is a ruling on that particular card, that unending wave or whatever it is, but it is just that you can't do more damage than the thing has health.
Yes.
So if it's got 10 health and you do 15, you didn't do 15 to it, you did 10, which is great because that's how we played it, right? Because otherwise it'd feel busted. But I did have to reread it because I'm like, surely this isn't what it says. And then before I jump on the podcast and get really wrong and everyone tell me I'm wrong, I was like, I've got to check it one more time. But it felt when things feel like they're doing way more than they should. And that's what that felt like it was.
It would have been play tested.
Oh, no, I know. And there's plenty of things through the game. This is the thing. No, but you saying like, hey, come at us with your combos.
Yeah.
There are combos and they're not broken.
No.
Right. But we are interested to talk about the combos.
Oh, yeah.
But you also have a feeling when you go, this is doing more than it should. Right.
Yeah.
Like this is not a lot of hoops to jump through, not a lot of things to tick off. It's like, you don't even need to really put.
Well, you're not someone who goes into Discord looking for these things. That's
totally.
what I mean. So
Yeah.
when you're discovering it, you kind of, that's even more reason as to is this Am I doing this right?
Yeah, totally.
Because you haven't had
because
that
I haven't had
confirmed.
like 20
Yeah.
people tell me that's how you have to play the character.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I liked and that's what I enjoyed about this is because we kind of discovered it naturally. Like we saw this card, like I played this card a few times and I was like, oh, I can boost this up. And then when you were like, I can brutal things, I'm like, ooh, hang on a second, we can make this work. And so it feels rewarding because like we found that. And I know people have probably found it before us. And as you said, the lucky dice and the hat and all that kind of crap like kind of goes with it, that you can make it even better. That's cool to know. And I hadn't thought of that. But yeah, it's kind of refreshing coming up with it. But now I don't want to do it anymore.
No.
That's why I'm really glad I'm retiring the shards because I don't want to just have to live off that combo for the next X amount of scenarios.
No, that's something I think we've never actually mentioned the actual combo, and I've just remembered now because of the Blink Blade. But it was the Premonition Hat, item 172. That's the one that allows you to look at the top 4 cards of your deck.
Yeah.
Right. We've mentioned Lucky Dice in the past, but it was the fact that those 2 items were together was allowing whoever had them. And I'm pretty sure it could be an obvious combo. I remember picking up this hat and at the time just going, oh, I don't really care about this. Oh, and then Phil was like, oh, what is it? And I explained it to him. He was like, oh, I'll have that. And he had the Lucky Dice. So all of a sudden, the combo that we then saw became Phil, when he decides to blow his load, looks at the top 4 cards of his AMD. He can rearrange the order of them. And then he knows what they're going to be if it's going to be an amazing Lucky Dice turn because they're now rolling modifiers, which allowed him to then absolutely burst down a boss or something with power pots and all that kind of stuff. And I can't believe I missed that in the Wombo Combo. But it was 2 items making the Wombo Combo in a way because those 2 items together, we had to separate them a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I bought one and someone else had one and we had them forever. Just keep them apart because, those 2 together were just too much.
Yeah, it does. It just becomes a little bit silly. And it becomes a bit too predict, like you can predict what's going to happen. And I think as soon as the game, and this is more of a broad conversation.
You mean like become solved?
Yeah, in a way. Like if you can look forward to know what exactly is going to happen, then I think that takes away some of the fun. Like attacking with a big hit with advantage to make sure that you don't miss is one thing. Because there's still, what do I draw? Do I draw 0? Do I draw -1? Do I draw a crit or a bless? Like that's still like a, whoa. But when you know what the cards are coming and then you plan the cards you're playing around that, again, it's kind of less fun. And a really interesting version of that was that the shards
I was about to say the perk.
Yeah, the perk, yeah.
The one you don't remember.
The one that nobody remembers, yeah. Phil's job was to remember, and then I remembered for him. He's like, damn it, I was going to remember that. So the shards has a perk that when you get it...
Reveal a room.
Yeah, reveal a room, and everyone gets to look at the top card of their AMD, and you also look at the top card of the monster AMD.
Which, by the way, doesn't work for Astral at all, because it's always a rolling modifier, and it doesn't really answer anything.
So, yeah, but like having that card on top, and what we would do by the end so that we would remember when we were having our turn, because there was one where I had a crit and I forgot, and that could have been a really big turn. But we flip it over just so you can see, right? Because you're like, this is the card that I'm going to get next. And then you do an attack, and you're like...
Yeah.
Instead of flipping it over and being like, whoa, I got this thing, even if it's a +1, you're like, oh, I guess I just put the +1 in the discard pile for that. It's nowhere near as exciting.
So true.
Right? So
like, you know what you're doing. And when you do it, like the drama of flipping that card, it shows just how much fun we have from flipping cards and rolling dice.
Yeah.
And the minute, you see that crit there, you're right. It's a good hit and it's good. It doesn't feel as exciting.
Yeah, it's planning around perfect information, which I think is fine as long as you don't do it too often. I think that the infrequency in which it happens, okay, I think it makes it fine, and that's just the only thing with that hat dice combo. When it's a big moment, I think robs it a little bit of it. Although it was Phil doing it, but for us it was still exciting because we didn't know what he picked. Like, how many crits does he have? That was really it. It's like, does he have 3 blesses and a crit? Is he going to do 100 damage in this hit?
Which is when we split the items. Do you remember I took the lucky dice on the media?
Yeah.
So I saved it for double doubles in a way.
Yeah.
But the gamble from that is not knowing the cards that are there because they're rolling. If one of those rolling is the null, it nullifies the whole round.
Yeah.
So it's like the ultimate gamble is dice, right? The lucky dice. And I lent into that because I like the chaos of potentially missing.
Yep.
And I don't think there was anything catastrophic in any time that I did it, but it definitely every time I went to use it and I'm lucky dicing this, it made my heart race a little bit as I'm flipping those cards.
Yeah, so like I think the lucky dice are a really cool design thing for exactly that reason. It's like go in all in, right? Like go into chaos and just see if you can get a really big hit out. The hat, the only thing I would look at if I was to redesign it is I would have at the end of the round, when you use it, you have to shuffle your AMD. So you can use it to look at your cards, but you can't just look at the top 4 of your cards and go like, I know what my next 4 attacks are going to be. It's more like this turn, if you use all 4 cards in a turn, great. But if you don't get to know what your 4th card is.
Yeah.
I think that's the only part of it that I think should be kind of adjusted. So you're not just pre-planning your next 4 attacks.
Yeah.
But I know that's the point of it. I'm just saying just to make it more on the less deterministic side. It's like have a look now, and if you can make use of it, good.
Yeah.
I
like that. I'll definitely like that. We're getting close to the end, so it looks like we're going to give you all the fill hats, which is fine. We can do chess next week. We can do chess next week.
How about we just don't talk about hats very long?
Look,
we'll see how we go.
All
right.
So I asked guys to go through. We're at a stage right now where I'm not worried about looking at the items that are available, because obviously someone's still going to be locked out behind. There might be a treasure, or it might be something else, or something we have to craft. But I just said look into the different categories of items and find 3 of your favorites that you just like the idea of. You may have never used, you just like the item, and 3 you don't like. And we'll play a little kind of thing where we're going to pull 3 items from each category, and we're starting off with hats, and we're going to talk about 3 that we like and 3 that we don't like.
Yeah.
So starting with hats, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So this is one that I did use. I think it was on the crab. I'm not 100% sure. The Rejuvenating Charm. Okay. So this is why I was bringing
What item number is it?
Oh, that's a really good question.
never mind.
If I was on my computer, I would have all these, but I will quickly bring it up and I will keep talking so it looks like I'm not actually stalling.
Maybe I'll go first quickly.
No, I don't worry about it. I know I'm prepared.
Do you have this for all of the hats?
I do. All right. So whenever you lose a card to negate damage, draw up to 1 card from your discard pile and gain regen.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So I feel this is a really cool one because it's like a powerful ability that doesn't cost anything, but its trigger is in a timing where like, oh, I got whacked really hard. Cool. I get some kind of like weird benefit out of it. Like I get a card back. But there are times I know that I use it. And I can't remember if it was the crab or if it was the a banner spear. But there was times where I just used it as a like a really expensive power plot. Right. So it was basically like, okay, I got hit for 3. I was like, critical moment. I need a certain card. I'm going to burn a card to damage. Going to give myself regen. But I'm also going to get that back. Yeah. And it also gets you out of the 1 wound. You're on 1 and you've got wound situation. Right. Because if you do it when you're low, right, then you get regen. And as long as you don't get hit anymore, on your turn, next turn, you're going to tick that thing off. So it kind of, I know a couple of times, like having the amulet that heals you 1 doesn't help if you're on 1 and you've got wound.
No.
Right? So it kind of, again, I know you don't want to burn cards, but it is a case of you're not spending anything extra to get this. But it does have, I like these, I like things that have like these, sometimes they have a really niche kind of like, oh my God, this lines up really well and I can do this combo to kind of get us across the line. And I think that's really cool about that one.
Yeah. No, I think that's the only time we've ever seen that item. It was also one that you've used.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of awkward now because I've picked items at 172, which was the Kappa Premonition, which was the look at the cards. And I was like, oh, this is a really cool one. And Gaz has kind of made me go, oh, a little bit too strong and a little bit too potentially, that perfect information and that kind of solve things. So part of me is like, oh, yeah. But I like that it kind of stands on its own as a very, very different item. But yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing that's cool about that though is also that there are characters that want certain cards, the text on the cards. Like it can be seen as a numbers thing, but there are things like thinking about the prism. And the prism had a weird random synergy where if you could draw your robot's attacks cards in the right order and switch into them, you could actually get more attacks out from the robots based on you moving in and out of them. So a cap like that, knowing what my next cards are, because there's a world where you could actually maximize how much damage you get out of those things and end up in places. Like there's like a big brain plays with some of the characters around those, not just, oh, can I pull big numbers? Which I think is a really cool thing to have on an item.
It's a good point. Very good point. Even little things like push your token back on Drifter, like everyone generally has these kind of text things that you're hoping will come up.
And hoping that you don't draw them when you have advantage and want the number, or two of them at the same time, like stuff like that. Even attacking with advantage. I know Mark did it a lot where he's attacked with advantage and he draw 2 blesses, right? Or something like that, right? You draw 2 zeros and then or 2 token generations and then 2 like kind of crits, and you're like, well, that's wasted. At least you kind of get to reorder it. So
yeah.
The next one on my list is the crude helmet or iron helmet. So this is really boring, but
I think it's still integral.
Oh, it is. I'm just like, it's not exciting. You're not like, you know what? I
It's a
love this
staple.
game because I get to wear this. But the reason that I liked it and I liked the item is that I know on the characters I took it on, which I think was mostly the crab, maybe I had it on the Banisphere for a bit, was that when you wanted to get hit, I felt safe, right? So I have this item. I know I can't get hit for much more than what's on there. They're attacking for 4. Yeah, they can pull their +2 still, and I'll still take 6, but I've got shields. That's why I'm wanting to get hit. But I'm not going to get hit for 8. Like it was that little safety thing of like, yeah, plus or minus 2.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And that I don't like, I know there's the sub rule that you can play with where crits are +2 and misses are a -2,
Yep.
which would give that to the whole game. But I don't want that all the time. I want it to be an active choice on a particular character because I've gone into a play style to say, just remove the variance of me taking a massive spike in damage. And I think it's a cool investment into that because you could have this for 15 scenarios and it never do anything. Like you just never get crit, right? And then but it's like insurance.
Yeah.
Like it's probably better that I don't have to use this rather than me getting crit and going, haha, take that. Like
Yeah. Who do you think gets crit out of all of us the most? Is it Phil or Mark?
it's probably Phil.
Yeah.
He gets crit a lot.
But he's got the premonition hat, so he can't have the crit hat.
No. Like, do you want a crit or do you want to not get crit? You get a 2-button meme. So
no, I think it's a good staple, and I think it's one that a lot of people. I think it's one of the variants is available very, very early on, and like at the beginning of the game when you're using the most basic gear to set your characters up. So that and the one I'm about to talk about, which is the Amulet of Life, which I think is to save so many. Like it is so useful. It's one of those ones that's misleading. It doesn't look like much. It's literally 1 on every rest cycle, a long rest cycle. That's if you get it back. But the fact that it removes 4 different conditions is nuts. Like all 4 of what? Wound, it's item 120. Cleanse Wound, Poison, Brittle, and Bane. Like 1 15 gold item just nullifies all of that. And what I really loved about this on the Astral, and I got more of it, is one of the infusions that I play, the one with the 1 element that I can keep playing. It's little passive thing. The infusion passive is all of your healing effects abilities now you also add regen.
Oh, okay.
So the actual card itself, when I play it, it actually the main body of text on it is you can target an ally within, I think, range 2 or 3 with a heal 2. But that also puts a regen on them. But where's my regen? Because that's only ally. So then I tap this amulet, heals me for 1, gives me the regen.
Yeah, cool.
So that's kind of something I've been doing with it. But I mean, it's like, I think nearly everyone has bought that on a character or 2.
It's
easily.
the default. If somebody creates a character, and I would recommend this to anybody ever to play the game. I feel like if you haven't played Frosthaven much, you're probably not this far into the podcast, but like if you are, good on ya. This is your staple. I can't think of what to get. I don't know what headpiece works with my character. Just get this one. It'll be good. Like at some point, this will be useful.
Bow Shaper, like level 1, has 6 health.
Yeah.
And 2 of which of that goes towards summoning a thing, right? This is phenomenal. And do you know how much, what percentage of that is like 15% or something of their whole health pool or something crazy like that, 17%.
Yeah.
Just from this one item that doesn't go away either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. And especially on shards, it was really good for me because I have a perk that starts me with brittle.
That's right.
And I also have cards that I take damage and give myself brittle to gain tokens. And so that was the one that was like that. I'm fine with playing these because I can always get rid of my brittle at any time.
Yep.
And that kind of worked in that cycle. So yeah, there's certain characters that it's not just like, oh, well, I get to get rid of poison before I put my big healing thing. But there's also characters that have cards that you go, well, I don't want to run around with brittle. Like, and I don't really have a good way of healing myself. So
I mean, you probably could.
what?
Don't you have cards that can heal yourself? You just
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
bring
but that's
them?
what I
I
mean.
know.
Like it's like the but I have to spend tokens to do that. So
Yeah.
it's like if I'm
No.
going to gain 2 tokens for doing it, and I have to spend one of those tokens to get rid of the thing. It's like way many 2 things to get to the same result. So yeah.
What was your third?
My third is
I think I know what it is.
Eye of Truth.
Yeah. Oh, no.
You just said yes because you just assumed you have no idea what that is.
I
do
thought
you?
it was the +1 target. The plus add target to a ranged attack.
No, look, I did only
Which is very
discover
cool.
that the other day when you were going through it. That's a circlet of eyes.
Yeah.
No, Eye of Truth. So I don't even know if we've unlocked this item, but it says during your turn, reveal the top card of each monster ability deck.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
I did
the
see
only
that.
reason that I'm picking this is because I've now just played a character that has ability on a couple of the cards to look at the monster ability deck. And I can just think back to our entire history of playing the game. And once every second scenario or so, there is a critical turn where we need to know what the monsters are doing next turn.
Yep.
Having an item like this, I can just see how powerful it is. Like, I didn't even know this was an item. I didn't know there was anything in the game that really let you look at the top card. But now that I've kind of seen how beneficial it is, and it sucks when they're doing their reset turn, which seems to keep happening on my shards. But the whole thing is that this is on call. This isn't on a certain card attack thing. This is just like, have a look. And I think the power of this item to, again, I know I was just saying how like it can make it unfun when it's deterministic and you know what's going to happen. But this is a once a scenario type thing.
Yeah.
Make sure that you don't get booked. Or how do you like plan a good turn?
Well, it's not even guaranteed though. I'm looking at scenario 10. Phil and I left. We've got 2 cards left each. We're playing them. We've got a priest there. We know the priest goes at 8/8 or 9. We want to avoid that. This will be the perfect time. But what if the previous round it played the reset card? That's the part that, you don't have that full control over it. Yes, you can pop it when you want, which means wait for it to not have a reset time, but sometimes that timing may not line up because of this exact situation where it's a reset card. So whatever we look at, it's not going to necessarily be that because it's going to get shuffled.
Yeah.
So it's not like perfect, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I just think it's a cool
Very.
ability in the game, and knowing that it's on an item that you can kind of have a look at everything and plan a little bit around it.
And it benefits everyone. It's not just something that benefits you. It's the whole party. So it's very useful in that way. The last one I had was item 197, Aether Diadem. It's $30. After ordering of initiative, exchange a card in your hand for one which you played, and your initiative is unaffected. So I think this is very cool for the thing that we complain about, which is playing a tank and playing a retaliate, is those turns where you've kind of gone in and done your retaliate only for them to do their retaliate. And this item allows you to take one away and go, you know what, I'm not using this now, and you grab something else. Or to react to you. It's similar to yours, knowing what you're doing, except you can just change your cards on the fly in a way. You can't change your retaliate, but all of a sudden if things are hitting real hard next to you, but they're not moving, you can, and you're not moving, you can now move things around a little bit, which I think is adding that reactionary tactical.
Yeah, fix your turn.
Fix your turn.
Yeah, fix your turn when RNG or bat or whatever it is, like kind of made it rough, right? Like, I think that's cool as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, what about the worst items?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, yeah, I was like, I almost forgot that we did that.
I want to start off with one that I think only really helps one character, and I can't see it, and I probably need 5 people to tell me why other characters would want this.
Which one's that?
So item 51. It's called the Spiked Collar. So during your turn, perform wound self. Now, I know Shackles likes the idea of maybe giving themselves a condition. Where is this useful? I think there was something I did see on a character that was like, when you take damage, you can do this. That's not the Shackles. Whether it be, when you're taking damage, you can mitigate it. And I think the Deathwalker can teleport to a spot. So I can see a world where you can intentionally want to take damage that you're controlling to then get another kind of benefit. Other than that, is this just such an unbelievably niche item that no one ever in there, for whatever reason, will ever... actually, battle goals is probably another thing.
Yeah,
if you need to get your health down to a certain level.
Or putting it on you to get rid of one. Okay. But taking an item for that just seems like such a... Like, we've just talked about 6 items that go in the head slot that are really cool. And they're not all really powerful. Like, they're not all numbers driven. There's some of them are just like niche support items or cool extra abilities. You're exchanging all of that for the ability to put wound on yourself. Like, yeah, I agree.
Maybe there's something we're missing.
If there is something we're missing, tell us. If it's not, and
Is it
it's
okay?
exactly
Maybe it's actually okay.
Yeah, it's actually
busted.
people are like, oh my god, do you guys not? That's like first purchase. We're always out of stock on these. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like that's we go to Zane. Is it Zane? What's
Yeah,
his name? Yeah,
Zane.
Zane. He's like, I've never got any of these spike collars in stock. I'm gonna have to order them in.
No.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one.
Yep.
It's a
Spike
weird
collar.
one.
It
Mine.
also cost a flame for it to make, by the way.
I mean, yeah, and if it was an accent, I could get it because we got unlimited. of them, but, all right. My first one that I had on my list for less exciting is the chain hood. So this is item number 21. So I forgot to give the item numbers on all the other ones. So bad luck.
I'll have to search them up. It will just be harder for me.
Yeah,
It would be much easier if you just gave me the number.
Yeah,
but
that's
fine.
all right. There's not that many. While you are adjacent to 3 or more enemies, gain 1 shield.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
And you also get 2 for your time, put a -1 in your deck.
I almost been this as well.
So I love the idea of items like this, of like just permanent passive things of when X is happening, gain Y. I love the idea of it. But 3 enemies to gain a shield and they have to be adjacent to you, it just seems so unlikely to happen on a regular basis that I just feel like, again, using a slot like this for that benefit, you're not going to gain it. Like,
Does it say when you get attacked?
no, adjacent.
So when 3 things are adjacent to you, you just happen to have 1 shield. So if something else off screen was range
Yeah.
shotting, okay, that's fine. That
Yeah,
makes
so-
it slightly better.
Yeah,
but,
that's it. So I can see where this is good, right? In the case of like you move in next to 3 things and now everything's going to focus you and then you get 1 extra shield. And I mean, you're probably playing a character that has 1 in 8 shield and maybe you've even played a card that gives you a shield. So you might be up to like 3 shield. It's the finding 3 enemies next to you, I think that is the challenging part for me, in that a lot of the times there's probably 2. Sometimes you're going to find one of them's range. So once it has its turn, it's going to move away and now you're only next to 2. So it moves back, you lose your shield. So it just feels like this awkward.
It's an
You might
ongoing
be able to
effect.
get it once or twice
Yeah.
because it's only while
Yeah,
they're
so it's
adjacent.
ongoing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like it
okay.
checks whenever. And so the only other thing as well is that it doesn't scale very well. And we
It's one
talked about
shield.
shields. If you're getting to harder difficulties, like we're talking about +2 and
3
things
hits
are
of
hitting,
7.
and
One
that's it.
shield's-
1 shield. You don't want to be standing next to 3 things if they're all hitting you for 6 or 7, right? Like you're like, that's not worth it. So I mean, this is an item that does drop away, I think, because it doesn't scale. But I think also it's
I just feel like you can not wear that item. You can actually go hatless and actually just not stand adjacent to 3 different targets.
that's kind of my
probably
point.
better.
Yeah, this is encouraging you to go into positions you probably don't want to be in.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't think that the benefit is as good as it could
Well,
be.
your crit helm might be even better in that
Well,
situation
yeah.
if you're surrounded by 3 things.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
but again, like I could be wrong, and there could be instances this is great. So happy to be told otherwise. But I just from our playing, it just seems that like unlikely you ever really want to move right next to 3 monsters.
No.
Not often, anyway.
No.
I could actually. I mean, maybe I'm underplaying that. I remember low level crabs. Maybe I do because I had 2 shield, I had 2 retaliate. But going up to 3 shield, if there was 3 monsters there, then I'd love that, right? But I'm more maybe thinking in the last 20, 30, 40 scenarios we've played. So yeah. Anyway,
No. Well, I mean, things got to be in the bin, right? We have to
something
bin
has to be,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. So I have item 67. This is the converging lenses. So this is one of those cards that actually flips back and forth.
Oh
right?
yeah, yep.
So one side of it is when you are attacked, add +1 to the attack instead of drawing an attack modifier card and flip this card over.
Mhm.
Okay. So something attacks you, they don't flip a thing over. It's just +1 to whatever the attack is. On the flip side though, lol, during the attack ability, add +1 to 1 attack instead of drawing an attack modifier card and flip the card over. I hate this.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I just
Hate,
think that-
strong word for something you've never seen before.
Number one, any attack in this that doesn't involve the AMD is a little bit questionable because that's such a big part of it, right? Adding +1, yeah, it's that perfect thing. But in order to, I mean, that's great if you're going to consistently get that effect. But in order to consistently get that effect, you need to be attacked. And it needs to be +1 to the attack you're receiving because you need to get the card back onto that other side. You don't infinitely choose which side you want to go with.
Yeah.
Because one of them is slightly better than the other. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. And even like I think it's the part that you don't use your AMD. It's just +1. If it was +1 plus whatever you flip for maybe taking the damage, there's always all of a sudden curses and misses and minuses and all that make this a little bit better. It's just the fact that you know what you're taking. Just flat out, you know what you're taking. You know what you'll be dealing. afterwards. But it's just one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me.
Yeah, I
Not
think
sure.
it's again, it's that knowing what's happening. It robs a little bit of the game. So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting item.
I think it's interesting.
I don't mind it, but I see what you're saying from a perspective of like I wouldn't use it. And also the payoff or the cost doesn't seem as good as the payoff.
No, well, it's like even if let's say media, for example, and I wanted to do double or something like that, it's kind of like, cool, I've set this up and I'm going to add +1, which is then going to be doubled. I don't even flip my thing. It's just that's how much damage I'm doing.
Yeah.
I can't see a world where you wouldn't want to flip it to then on a big attack other than you might miss.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Is that there's other things that are better for making you not miss. And I mean, actually, there's another item that I don't think I chose it, but it's actually the one that when you miss, you don't miss.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but
The not miss hat.
the not miss hat. Yeah. Which is if you're taking the lens thing to not miss, that one's just better because it means you don't have to take damage to.
Oh, you could use one of the other ones that give you advantage on the attack.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Well, yeah, so. All right. Well, my second one was inspiring helmet. All right.
Oh, is this the new one?
Yeah. So look, again, I can completely see. So this is item number as we scroll through and try to find it.
I'm inspired already.
16.
Mhm.
Okay. So I think it might be. It's not a starter one because it's got a recipe. During your turn, grant all adjacent allies move 2, and it's a lost item, not a retappable one, which also makes a difference.
So not giving them plus move 2, you're granting them move 2.
Yeah, granting a move 2.
Adjacent.
Is it? What did I say? Adjacent? During your turn, grant all adjacent allies. Wow, it's even worse. I didn't read that. Okay, cool. Yeah. So outside of the banner spear, wanting to set up some like critical formations. That's what they're called.
Yeah.
This one for the slot that it's taking, I feel like is not very good. And look, I guess this is a little harsh because I think some of these items are probably good at different stages of the game for different characters. So, like, just talking about one shield is heaps when everything's level 1 and hitting you for 3, right? Whereas not when they're hitting you for 7. This is probably good in a early scenario or like where you maybe are trying to tank people or maneuver around, or you've got a banner spear, which is one of the starter classes, where you want to move things around. So there is a place where it is good. But I feel like most of the places it's bad, right? And the slot that it's taking plus the fact that it's lost, if it was refreshable, maybe you'd sell me on it. But I don't know if making it refreshable would make it OP. Like, who's going to be like, oh my God, this is the most busted thing. You can make people you're next to move to.
Yeah. It'll be purely for a combo setup or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Like Amulet of Life, 1 heal.
I mean,
Tappable.
The thing is as well, I do like it from a get people out of bad positions as well. Like I like it as a more as a reactionary. I've got a thing that means that I can, like, we've had situations where, this person's going to die. We need to get them out of there. Having a cool item like that where you get to move forward, right? And then you get to use this and they get to move back to you. That's cool. That's a cool use of it. But it's only once per scenario. So it's kind of like that's really niche for a one-time thing that may never happen.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, I mean, I'm sure people are going to say, no, Gaz, because of this. And they're probably right to a degree, but it's not like here are, the most useless items in the game. It's literally a scale of, the ones that we like the most versus all the way down the end.
Most
they'll be used for everything.
Yeah.
It's by color as well, right? It's just, something has to be in the bin.
Something has to be in the bin.
There's always something in the bin. The last one I've got for worst hat items, item 11. I wrote, who cares? At the start of this is called Simple Charm. At the start of the scenario, remove 1/1 attack modifier card from your attack modifier deck.
I think I took this on one of my characters.
You probably did. I just out of all of the helms that are in the game, and they all have such interesting ways of, it's just the biggest kind of meh one. Yep. I totally see why, if you've got only one left, you've managed to pull the -2, you've got one -1 in your deck still. Yes, this can get rid of it so that your lowest card is the miss. And then +0 and all that. But man, you got so many interesting ones. Even your bullshit take an extra damage and deal an extra damage one that I mentioned earlier, I would take over this. Like, so much so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only reason I had it is because I had to spend 10 gold at startup. So it was the only thing I could afford.
That was your change.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, okay.
I think it's 10. Yeah,
no,
just check.
it's two metals.
Oh, 2 metal. I
Yeah, you
don't
have
know
to
what I'm
craft
talking
this.
about. Yeah, so I had to choose to have
Why would
it.
you craft this?
I don't know. Maybe I'm lying and I didn't take it. Maybe I considered it. I'm not sure. Who knows? I do weird things sometimes.
But yeah, no.
100% agree. Yeah. My last one is laser lens. So,
Oh, is this the fire one?
yeah, laser lens. So, item number 52. During your turn, eat fire, consume fire, to choose up to 2 enemies within range 4 to suffer 1 damage. And it's refreshable, so you can keep using it. So, this is pretty cool, right? I don't think this is garbage. But my kind of thought is that if you're playing a character that's generating fire, you need that fire to do things. And that fire is probably doing more interesting things than doing 1 damage to 2 targets.
Is it a tap?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a tap.
Yeah.
It's not like a consistently up thing.
No. So you can use. So let's just say you're using it once per rest cycle. Again, I don't think this is a bad item. I just think that the fire you're creating is probably being more useful for something else. And again, it's how this competes with other slots, right? Like there's other items that are going to do other cool things. I can see uses of this having it, so that you can eat the enemy's fire so that they can't use it. That's cool. But then again, it becomes really niche on like, are we fighting anything that's making fire? Can I get the timing on this right? Until recently, I mean, the only caveat of where this is useful is now we know that Blink Blade can just randomly make fire all the time and has no need for it.
And he actually did need to kill a 1 health thing earlier. So that actually would
maybe he should have taken these items, yeah. But the weird thing is this takes 2 items to make as well.
Oh, no.
Right? Which is like, so it's not a starter item. So, I mean, like, again, I love the idea of these little items that use elements, but I'm not sure in a world in which you have excess of those. Maybe there is. Maybe there's characters that make fire that have an excess of it. Like I know I had probably an excess of like wind on the banner spear, maybe a little bit more than I used on the shards as well. I know some characters have had light.
I mean, your drill makes fire, right? And uses fire.
Haven't we determined when we did like the post unboxing with Phil that he uses all the elements and doesn't make any of them?
Maybe, but I mean, I can see. I have a feeling Gaz is going to get this item on his drill because you're gonna there'll be fire up and you'll be like, I activate Cyclops mode, and you just start doing that, and you go 1 damage there, 1 damage there.
Yeah, like that's the way that I can see it working. Is in a world where you are knowing you're generating elements and usually don't have the combo to do anything with them, or it's not that exciting, right? But and still, then it's just like a random fire. Yeah, it's the opportunity cost of taking the item.
Yeah,
and then going, well, I've invested in this item, and I've invested a fair bit because you have to craft it from 2 other items. So you're not just going like, I'll just spend 20 gold and grab it. Right. And then to go, I'm going to play around this to make fire that then just deals 1 damage to 2 targets. It seems really kind of like that's a lot of things to go in the right direction for 1 damage to 2 targets.
Yeah. You've got me thinking now about an honorable mention, which is like the circlet of elements, which is the hat piece that just switches the elements to something else. And it's tappable when you want to do that. And that has infinite uses as something that it helps everyone. It helps you. It helps deny from monsters. Because you were mentioning that this one can be used to deny as well. But I get it.
Yeah, I agree. If you're taking it to deny, take the circlet, right? Because that has more uses than just that thing. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, nice. We definitely don't have time to go through the chest.
That took way longer than I thought.
Kind of. But it was a good chat.
It was. I'm looking forward to chest. Yeah. Well, maybe what we can do, if anybody has wants to send through what their MVP item is, right, or like what their LVP, like least valuable, I guess works. Yeah. Feel free to let us know. Maybe we can do a quick recap on that. So maybe send through what it is and just a really brief description on why. Not a really long mechanical description of in what situations it's OP. Just like, what do you like and war's a cool moment, right? Like that kind of stuff. And maybe before we go through the chests, we can do like a little recap on people's helm ones, and then we can do the chest next week.
Well, if you're in the Discord, just like DM them to either Gaz or myself separately so that we don't have them. I mean, if it's sitting in one of the public things, unless it's up for discussion and everyone wants to discuss it,
We won't catch it there. Yeah.
Well, because then I'm talking to you about something you've also read, and then
That's true.
That's
Yeah. Send it to Detty.
Oh, what do you mean? You can send it to the guys. You can
well,
blindside me.
Send it to me. That's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm happy to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. But either way, send it through.
Yeah, we'll bust some chests next time. We will end it there. We will be. I assume we're going to go to the next one in this now. 88, I think,
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
Makes sense, right?
Makes
This
sense.
is the next one.
and we can do that for 2 weeks.
Yeah, correct.
Oh,
Yep.
we're going to have a different lineup now, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Well, it will. Yeah.
Yeah, plus
Brand
2.
new. Plus 2. Yeah. Bring it on.
Oh, just the
Well, I
excitement
mean,
that came from you.
Mark was talking about because he needs to finish one more challenge.
That's a good point.
And he wants, so he
Plus
was
1 on
thinking
the
like-
challenge.
But I don't know why to do plus 2 on a challenge.
Plus 2 on a challenge, yeah.
Plus 2 on a challenge.
For his retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Go
that
out on a
makes
bang,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
May
of
as well, then
course.
we can repeat the scenario for 5 weeks.
100%.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yep.
We will catch you all next week as we discover scenario 88 and give our first attempt at that, and hopefully final attempt. But join us next week.
Next week.
Next week. And we'll catch you all then. So I've been Detty. I've been joined again by Guess.
And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the Wombo Combo.